Stampers. My name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. And this is my buddy Puccini. He helps me in the craft room. At least he keeps me company. And sometimes he comes and lays down on top of all of my work. Today we have a fun fall card. It's a Thinking of You card. And I'm going to make a couple of changes. I've used a very simple palette and I've used a couple of die sets. I had a lot of leaves on my desk from the last card that we made, which was a birthday card, using the dies from this textured Chic suite, the season of Chic. And so I had some of those left over, and then I was out on my desk also was the Aspen tree dies, which I think are just beautiful. And so I ended up doing a combination of all of those leaves. I love fall leaf cards. So that's what I have for you today. Again, it's a Thinking of You card, and let's just get started. Here is my card. And again, it's very simple. It's on a Mossy Meadow background with Sahara Sand. And then I've used some of the papers from the Textured Chic suite, which are, again, the gold and then the evening evergreen with the gold on it. And I've cut out more leaves. And what you need to make this is you need a base that is Mossy Meadow. I made mine, it's 8.5 by 5.5 scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then I have 2 pieces of Sahara Sand. Actually, I have 3 pieces of Sahara Sand, but first one is 4 by 5 1/4, and that is for the inside of the card. This one is 3 3/4 by 5, and that's for the outside of the card, which will give us this nice, big, beautiful mossy green folder outline here. Then I used a piece of Mossy Meadow here that is 2 1/4 by 7/8, and this piece of Sahara Sand is 2 inches by 5/8. And let's see, I'm using the Thinking of You stamp from the Quiet Meadow stamp set, Thinking of You right there. And I'm using dies from the Aspen tree dies, and I'm using the 2 leaf dies here, and then from the season of Chic, the Chic dies, I'm using those same 5 leaves I used on my last card. And then I've used some of our silver and gold twine and a little bit of our linen thread to get the bow on here. And I did this up in a corner that I don't normally do. So this piece that goes on the outside, the other thing that I did use is I used this painted, what is it called? Painted Texture Embossing Folder, because the first time I did it, and that's what I'm changing up on this, when I did this, I just used a splatter stamp to put a little bit of the soft suede on here to just give some texture, and then I thought, why not give it real texture? So this time I have done that. I've run my piece through my embossing folder and got this. Now then, I'm using a lot of ink. So I'm using Pumpkin Pie. I am using Mango Melody. I'm using Cherry Cobbler. I'm using Soft Suede. And I'm using Evening Evergreen and Mossy Meadow. So those are the inks that I'm using, and I'm using daubers to do the techniques. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some of this Mossy Meadow. In fact, I might not even be using the Evening Evergreen on this one, but I've got a dauber here, and I've got some Mossy Meadow, And I'm going to grab some scratch paper here because I have a tendency to make a mess when I do this kind of stuff. And what I'm going to do is just use my dauber to pick up those embossed edges on this folder. And I thought that might be more interesting than just the plain and the splatters, because this gives us a real sense of the texture on this folder. And so I'm just kind of going over wherever there are edges here, and won't take very long, doing this in real time so you can see just how long it takes. And you can get as heavy a hand as you like, but I think just an edge here and there, and blending in a little bit of that Mossy Meadow. The Sahara Sand has kind of a green cast anyway, and so I think it's very, very pretty. And this is now ready to go down on my card. So I'm going to add some seal to the back of my card here. And I'm going to put this on the front of my card, giving myself a pretty nice margin all the way around, and I thought that looked particularly attractive on this. Now then, I'm going to, see, I can go ahead and do my stamping and get that out of the way. I've got my Thinking of You, and I'm going to also do that in Mossy Meadow. I've got my Thinking of You stamp here, and I think that's centered. Didn't do a very good job of that. Let me get that good and inked up. Should be using my Stamparatus. No, still no good. So I'm going to do this piece in my Stamparatus, and I've got my piece of paper put in here, my magnets down here on the bottom, and I'm going to do that, I think, a couple of times so that I get a nice dark image. There, I think that looks pretty good. Maybe one more for good measure. I just re-inked that stamp. I think I'm ink pad. I guess I'm going to have to do it again. Okay, so there we go. Thinking of You just the way I want it. All right, now I'm going to use my trimmer off camera here and just trim that sentiment up to 5/8 of an inch by 2 inches. There, I've got my piece trimmed, and now I'm just going to go ahead and put it on my mat, which is in the old, is it Old Olive? Mossy Meadow. Can't keep it straight in my head. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to put that right here on this little card. And there we go. So my stamping then is done. All right. Now the part that it's going to take some doing to do is to color these aspen leaves. And I've cut out 2 of them. I need 3. I need 2 small ones and a large one. And what I did was I used the Mango Melody, and I thought about aspen leaves have golds in them, and they have some browns, and some of them have a little bit of the green left, and sometimes that gold is a little bit on the reddish side. So I started out by putting Mango Melody on the outside of these leaves, and then getting a little bit of that color on the inside of the leaves. And at first I thought this big one was going to be way too big for this card, but if you tuck it under to make it sort of the anchor of the leaves, I think it works out pretty well. We don't need this tail, however. So I'm going to make sure that I've got the outside edges of that covered, and then I'm going to drop a little bit of this Mango Melody color on the inside of this. Now then, I'm going to go back to the green, which was my Mossy Meadow, and the green in Aspen leaves is maybe a little bit different than this, but this is what I had out on my desk, and I think it works just fine. So I put a little bit of Mossy Meadow on my leaves here, and you can see there's really no science to this. It's just getting a little bit of color down. So I'm through with that one. Then I've got my pumpkin pie, and I'm going to go back to my orangey kind of dauber here and put some of that pumpkin pie in on top of that Mango Melody. And I think it adds just a little bit of more of the fall colors and a little bit of richness to the leaves. And you just don't want to get too much of any one of these colors on here, or it starts not to look very realistic. There we go. Then probably the surprise color is Cherry Cobbler, and I took a little bit of the Cherry Cobbler and got a little bit on my dauber, and then just ever so lightly put a little bit of that red twinge in that leaf. Isn't that pretty? And on this little one, I'm going to put a bit more, and then the same thing on this one. Some bit more around the edges here. And then the final touch is a little bit of a darker brown, and in this case I used soft suede. So I'm going to put some of these away for the moment. I'll need them back out again because I'm going to also treat some of the gold leaves. And this is a little bit of the brown, and lots of times these leaves have just a touch of brown in them. And aren't those pretty? Doesn't that look like fall? And you can certainly go back and do more with them than that, but that's what I did. Then I took a couple of these gold leaves from the Chic dies, and I used my Cherry Cobbler and my pumpkin pie. And I thought these would just look so pretty if they had a little bit of these colors on them. So I have added some of the red to some of these leaves, and I think that red enhances the gold pretty well. And then I also did the orange, and it's amazing how pretty it makes these gold leaves. Okay, so we've got some leaves covered now. So next I'm going to, and I may need to do more with that, but right now that's what I've got. So there's my leaves, and then here's some of these other leaves that I've got cut in some of the evening evergreen and big ones and little ones. And actually, on a couple of these, I did add a little bit of the red and the orange. Thought it just made them look a little bit more interesting. Okay, so there's basically what I'm using. Now, I've got my card front here all ready to go, and I'm anchoring this with this leaf here. And what I did was I put a little bit of snail on one end, and then I put a dimensional on the tip so that it laid flat up here in the corner but was raised a little bit down here. And then I started just layering some of these leaves in. And on these I usually use my dot runner because it disperses the glue a little bit less intently. And so I've got this leaf here, and actually I may cut this one so that I just use the tip on this one and stick it right in here. No two of these will ever come out the same just because you put it together differently. Like that. And then one of these leaves across the middle. It's best to go with the way the leaves are going when you're putting your glue on, because otherwise it wants to come down and be in the middle of everything. So let's see, put that one up there. Then I did one of these fuller green leaves right in, about here. And then I have this that I've used, and I'm just going to snip off that tail and see if I can use this one to show a little bit more of the gold leaf pattern there. And then maybe this little green one down here. And in fact, some of them I turned over and used the lighter green on the other side. On this one, not so much. Then I took this little guy and I put it up on dimensionals. Put that leaf right back here, covering that end. Isn't that pretty? Then I took our linen thread and our gold cord, and that gold cord comes in a 2-pack with some silver, and I cut a pretty good length because I wanted to double it. And so I just cut a long length. I don't know how long this is, probably 18 inches, something like that. And then I cut it, put it in half so that I had 4 cords, and that's all fairly even on this end. And then these two I pulled down and cut. So now I've got 4 strands that are equal size. And just your basic bow. So a loop around the back, underneath and through this loop, and start pulling pieces together. As with all bows, they require a bit of fiddling. There we go. And then I have all of these wonderful tails just going every which direction, which was exactly what I wanted. And what I did was I put a couple of glue dots, and I tucked them into the card, oh, kind of right in the middle, and laid them down next to one another, and then put this whole bow assembly just right on there on those two glue dots, and then let these things just go crazy. And you can try teasing them with the end of your scissors to lay a little flatter or to curl a little bit more, but I thought sort of whatever they did was just fine with me. I was in the mood for just letting it go. Then we have our piece here that we're going to put down in this corner. So I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals and add that to our card right down here. And there we go for the outside of the card. Now for the inside of the card, I have my piece that is 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm just going to add that to the inside of the card. And because the card base is this Mossy Meadow, that color is automatically inside for me. And then what I did was I just put a few leaves down on the inside of the card and added some snail to those leaves right up in the corner. And let's see, do I have any more of these? These gold ones didn't get any color on them, so I am going to grab that piece of scratch paper I had earlier and add some color to this gold leaf here so that it has the orange and the sort of reddish color to it, and add that here as well. Mr. Puccini didn't come back to investigate this time. Sometimes he comes back and lays in the middle of my work, whatever it is I'm doing. Okay, and there is my aspen leaf on the outside for my decoration, and I left it pretty plain. But there is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, well, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. It's always a good time to join Stampin' Up! If you join now, you don't have to have your first minimum completed until the end of the year. Let's see, what can I tell you? There's some daily deals, weekly deals going on with Stampin' Up! And there's in 4 weeks, the 4 weeks of September, and they're available on the site, and their items are about 20% off. Then, let's see, my prize draw for the month end is a $60 shopping spree on me, and all you have to do to get in the drawing is to place an order of any size on my store, lbedinger.stampinup.net. And I'm trying to decide if I want any additional bling on this. I've got right here a couple of these iridescent rhinestones. Let's see how they look on here. Oh, they pick up the color in the leaves. That's pretty. Well, maybe I will put a couple of them on here. There we go. That is that is the bling for this. And Let's see, I didn't put any on this one, so I guess I would have to add a couple here. And I'm using the larger ones because I think those smaller ones wouldn't show quite as much. And there we go. Just to put a few on there, just for grins. And let's see, we're refreshing some of the retired stuff on my blog, so there's new retireds on there, and I've got my first kits up, and so take a look, and I'll be adding more through the week, and over the weekend I'll be putting up, well, I'll have about 8 of them right now. I think I've got 3 up, and so that's it for me. You'll have to let me know which one you like better. Do you like it better with the splatters or with the actual texture here? And I'd love to know what you think. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.